I tend to become too loud, so if I just then you can pipe me down, okay? My young friends here and all our colleagues here at Ahmedabad University, it's absolutely a privilege and honor to get up and address all of you. Clearly, I was told that this is an inaugural topic and that you might be interested to hear what has been the experience of one person working in one industry for a long period of time. This is not normal because today, the more companies you change, the better your biodata seems to be enriched. But that privilege was not given to me because my father chose that the only thing I could do was get into his business, and therefore I found myself, educated or not, but getting into this business ever since I was a small kid. Incidentally, going back to the starting of Unichem, Unichem was founded as a proprietary concern way back in 1944. This was 3 years before independence even came to India. At that point of time, the situation in the pharmaceutical industry was such that we were totally dependent on imported products and companies which were manufacturing, were not manufacturing. They were all multinationals, most of them which have again come back here. In this scenario, my father did not qualify to be a pharmacist. He was actually went to England to do his, what they called in those days, the Indian Civil Service. And for some reason, had some tiff with the Viva people, could not pass his ICS. Then decided that he needed to do something, earn some degree, because he finally had borrowed some money, because my father's father was a school teacher. And he didn't have shoes to wear. My father didn't have shoes to wear till he passed his SSC. So we never came from any great affluent background. We came from common stock, as I guess most of us are here. And clearly then, he came back to India, decided to dabble into various areas, till a friend of his in college told him that you're doing nothing. Why don't you join our family concern, which is a small pharmaceutical company in those days called Bajaj Standard Pharmaceuticals. And therefore, if you reach a turnover of, in those days, a lakh of rupees, we'll make you partner. And they found this young man a little too smart. So in 6 months, my father had reached that turnover. And then the family started getting a bit nervous. And anyway, that is how Unichem got founded on a borrowed capital of 5,000 rupees in a small garage. He had no background of medicine, leave alone pharmacy. What he used to do was basically have this Swadeshi feeling. If India has to find its feet, its millions of people must get affordable medicine, and therefore let us see what we can do about it. The idea was to establish an Indian pharmaceutical company. In those days, friends, I know it's impossible for you to imagine. The only companies existing in those days were in Bengal, called Bengal Chemicals, and there was, of course, the famous company from Gujarat, Alembic Pharmaceuticals. These were the only companies existing at that point of time. How do you manage then a business policy? What is it you have going which can allow you to really do something which makes sense? So he found out what is a unique consumer initiative. We now can call it CRM or any word we want to call it. Obviously there was no money, so there is no question of bribing any doctors to get business. But the way to do it which he found and which really helped the company was to come out with unique products. Products which required a kind of association with the consumer, which was the doctor. So he got suggestions from the doctors. In those days, the regulatory climate in India was such that your idea itself was enough for you to get a license. You didn't really have to go through all the rigmarole now which the world puts all the industry through. And then he would go to the doctors and say, sir, this is your suggestion, this is the product we have. And obviously that made a huge connect. And therefore, in those days, what really helped was, I think, a factor of trying to come out with newer solutions to ailments which at that point of time were not being treated the way they needed to. Example in point was tropical eosinophilia and filariasis. Diethyl carbamazine citrate was a given up product because the multinationals could not patent them. So he decided to take this product and try to use it for a condition called tropical eosinophilia, and that became successful, and that is how the starting started. One of our products which today is giving us a fair amount of turnover, but of course has been now superseded by many other products, was Unichem. Unichem was something which was taught to my father as a combination by a doctor from Nadia, Dr. I.G. Patel, way back in 1950s. And the idea to look at that time was that whatever is the requirement in terms of a typical feeling of indigestion or not feeling comfortable. In India, we have got a multiple diets. We've got allergy which takes place because of the food we eat. As they say, there's an old saying, one man's meat is another man's poison. And clearly, then he developed this whole concept by putting all kinds of what you may call like a Hajmola Churan. Everything was kind of put into that. This might help for this, so therefore we will use this. The person needs to have a good bowel movement, therefore he needs this product, or she needs it. So in the morning she has the feeling. You know, every Indian gets up in the morning, the first thought is, am I going to the loo or not? Otherwise the day is not good. So these were some of the psychologies which he was able to play on, became very successful. But there were certain issues which came out of this. And so while we were leaders in new products, new as I defined what I meant by new, it was not new that it was path-breaking research, but it was new in terms of the applications. We became a very respected name with the medical fraternity because in those times he was able to make this one-on-one connect. And also he did a lot of personal efforts by going to the medical colleges, trying to start medical education in the sense, printing diagnostic charts, printing diagnostic handbooks, so that young students who had to appear for their exams started relying on Unichem charts and Unichem handbooks, which helped them really to do well. And obviously as a part of that, it also became a very good business sense. So the first years of 44 to 1960 was this what I call the launch of Unichem and this slow but steady takeoff. There were certain principles which were enshrined right from the beginning. Having the first office near Mahalakshmi Temple at Bombay, if you see our monogram, it's got the Mahalakshmi Temple pillars. And these pillars, for us, have represented and always represent the qualities of quality and reliability. Now this was something which was enshrined way back in 44. And one of the learnings which I would share with you, that there are certain core values and ethics which we need to keep as an organization, irrespective of whatever are the time changes, because there has to be a genetic DNA which would allow you to really operate. Otherwise, if you get swept with the times, you have issues with that. So clearly, this is what I call the lesson of entrepreneurial spirit, the lesson of not saying no, building and nurturing relationships, and at the same time making sure that you are adding something and you get the benefit of the profit as a difference between the service which is perceived by the people compared to what you charge. His philosophy has always been, we have to serve the society we exist in. Otherwise, it is also very interesting business sense, because otherwise you will always have only a short-term perspective. All of this take me now to 1962. So we've tried to cover 18 years in about 3 minutes or 5 minutes. So we now come to 1962, where, understand, India was a very heavy tax regime. it's not as nice as now, where possibly we have one of the lowest personal taxations in the world. At that time we were slapped with estate duties, wealth tax, because obviously the Nehruvian philosophy was it was easier for people to take away the rich man's money rather than to make the poor people feel more affordable. So again, the lack of funds, he decided to float this company and converted this proprietorship directly into a public limited company, which was called Unichem Laboratories Limited. He did not consult very smart taxation people, who ideally would have suggested that we should first have made it a private limited company, got shares issued, and in the process then finally had small dilutions over a period of time. So the public money which would have come in would have allowed us actually to keep control without really having to pay anything, and that would have helped to increase the resource base of the organization. For some smart reason, he decided directly to go from proprietary to public, and 50% of the shares of the company were given to us by way of our goodwill. Okay? And then the beautiful thing started. Before we went public, there was the Chinese emergency when India went to war with China. All the underwriters in those days who had underwritten our stock backed out. And just 4 days before the issue, he didn't know what he should do. So he once again used his clout to go to the chemists and doctors. And in those days, in the time of the controller of capital issues, when it was very difficult to really market your stock or price it according to what the consumer felt or what they felt would be the value, we were oversubscribed 3.5 times. And that was something which basically made us feel that there is something going in this company which, if leveraged properly, can take us to the next level. The other issue which happened was because of these irrational tax policies. And my father always believed that the more money you make, unless you utilize it for good purposes, his son is only going to become bad. And therefore it's better to pay the taxes. And in that process, what happened was that we lost even that 50% because we had to mortgage our shares to be able to pay tax. And so while the other companies were benefiting from all the value they were able to get and get related, we were in a different spiral where actually we had to cling on to try to keep the control in the company. Fortunately, in those days, sales of brands, sale of companies was not known. That's how we survived. Otherwise, somebody at that time with a market cap of less than 5 crores could have bought us over, and I would have been possibly some professor here trying to find some job somewhere. But clearly, this was the situation in which we were. However, what also happened is you have Larry Greiner's very famous understanding. Every evolution breeds its own revolution. And you need to have different things done at different times. There is never a question that anything you do is right or wrong. It's in the context in which it is done which plays a very important part. And Unichem is one classical instance of contextually having lost certain opportunities and also contextually having gained certain opportunities. And so what I'm presenting to you is a mixed bag of, I would say, a combo of some successes, some failures, but at the end of the day, everything in life is a learning. And I thought that it is much better to talk frankly about what we've gone through and what our young people can learn out of this rather than to glorify anything. So therefore, the issues now which happened was, here my father had kind of virtually gained industry status. He was called into every council everywhere possible. Government was asking his advice, everything. And we got surrounded by a group of relatives, because in those days professionals were hard to come by. So we had this paternalistic yes man kind of approach. I was not anywhere in the scene because they took long years to conceive me. I don't know why they conceived me, but anyway they did. But this was nearly 19 years after marriage. And He was so worried that one was bad enough that he decided no more, which was good for me. But as far as the business was concerned, we had this huge gap. And so therefore what really happened is we did not anticipate the changes which took place in the 70s and 80s. What were the changes? He himself had worked to make sure that India was not signatory to what was considered in those days the old Patent Act, which means that in atomic energy, nuclear energy and pharmaceuticals and agrochemicals, we had looked forward to what was called having a patent life of a product only for 7 years and going for compulsory licensing. And he was one of the advocates actually to work for that. But we were so caught up in our own kind of world or megalomania, whatever it was, that the steps which were being taken by the other companies in order to take advantage of this, what were the steps? Step number one, generic exports. At that time, it was very difficult for India to market its products worldwide. But the API, which is actually the raw material from which the finished product is made, that people were making. The Reddys in those days, before they called it Reddy, it was standard laboratories and all of that, used to make 1 crore per ton of ciprofloxacin they used to sell. And we for one decided that we could still stick to some of our old brands and we need not invest so much in manufacturing because the company was cash starved as always, and for us it was a question of maintaining our control if we took in outside money. So clearly we had situations where we did not anticipate the change taking place in those days. While others were putting up excellent manufacturing facilities, we had to subterfuge visitors. We couldn't take them to any of our plants because, as they say, sometimes it's like Naam Mota Darshan Kota. In the sense, we really didn't have anything which was worth talking about. But we were still surviving because of A, the protection which was there in the country, 2, the reputation which was there, and the medical profession, of course, having still a lot of regard and belief. So the other point I learned out of this is that change is inevitable. If you do not anticipate change, change is going to overtake you. And then your chances of succeeding in that are going to be far more remote. Why? Because I think it's a very poor scanning of the environment. It's a very poor, ability to predict what changes are going to occur. And I think, again I bring this context into play, that if we had realized at that point of time that we needed to invest in manufacturing, that we could have borrowed more money and seen that we could have expanded our business, and also exports. Because we were manufacturing products, which, as I said, were these typical Bhelpuri products. A lot of countries which had enacted legislation where it was not possible now to market those products. In 1955, friends, Unichem was the first company to get an export award in India for having marketed its products on its own in Southeast Asia, whether it was Bangkok, whether it was Thailand, whether it was Malaysia. But all these products, it was difficult to justify clinically, as the world wanted more and more logical information and understand as to why the 2 ingredients need to be combined, not necessarily because empirically it was good. And that's where, with the plants not getting approval, we missed that opportunity. So clearly then the situation which came was, we missed on opportunities while pursuing somewhat esoteric products. Esoteric products because basically now, at that time we felt that we knew everything there is to know. And we also felt that it was possible to guide the medical profession to make us think the way we want. Whether it was meaningful to them or not was a secondary issue. One more example I'll give you. We were the earliest in those days to find that metronidazole, which is used as your flagell or something, as an intravenous product, is actually very good for anaerobes. My father was the first one actually to fund that research in 1974, and Lancet actually came out with a whole article. But he decided that no, we need to put glucose in it, and therefore it's always better to give glucose along with metronidazole, little realizing that there are diabetics who can't take glucose. The investment which would be required to put such a plant in would be in crores. We were very timid about that. So the opportunity got taken by somebody else, which was JB Chemicals, which has made Metrogel into such a large product. So I think the point is that even if you have a good idea, you need a good team who will buy into it and who will make sure that that idea gets implemented. So I think as a leader, it's just not enough to be just a visionary, but you need to create an environment where people believe that what you're doing makes a lot of sense. Anyway, we trudged along, and then came the issue when we really got knocked on the head. And this was in 1988, where one of our products, which was contributing to a large amount of our profits, got banned. And it got banned because the government of India felt that it was not being used rationally. What was that product? That product in those days was a tablet which a woman took if she missed her period. And if the woman got her period, it was recognized that there was no pregnancy. Otherwise, the woman had to take whatever steps had to be taken. There were some articles which said that there was 1 in 10,000 cases of somebody developing any kind of teratological effects, which means the child could be born, would be either deformed or something like that. And we tried our best for many years to explain to people, it didn't work. One day the product got banned. Suddenly 80% of the company's profit disappeared. And again this shows one thing, dependence on one product and not able to make sure that you have something going for you in terms of a backup is where you can land into trouble. So the loss of BP4 due to this regulatory issue, by that time my father's style and leadership had already got a little out of sync, because now he had thought that I now need to only contribute to the nation. So we decided to put up, which was a great idea, we decided to put up a protein extruded plant where we said that we will now make snacks and try, instead of giving just pure taste, also nutrition. The same thing is today given to US Kurkure. But that was 1988 and we are 2012. So sometimes the prophet doesn't get recognized in his own time. But I think the issue which was still bigger was we used the same pharmaceutical infrastructure rather than marketing it as a pure OTC product. Again, timid of investment, conservatism, and no money to really be able to back this up. So, and with this, of course, with this increasing divergence, dynamic reality and outdated business model, obviously the only thing we could have done was to close shop. And how we didn't close shop? What was the reason for that? And what gave us the courage to possibly bounce back? I would say this was only one thing, and that is Unichem's reputation in the doctor's eyes has never taken a hit. It was our inability to extract business out of the people. It was not that the doctors ever felt that this was something which they were actually asking, that why is Unichem not as aggressive a company as it was earlier. So really when me and my colleague, and I have to here take a side to mention about a couple of my colleagues, when I was completely confused and not knowing, as they say in Gujarati, ke jare abad fate, tare tumhe thingda na mani shako. You have to think in terms of a totally different way of doing things. I was very privileged that the person who is the living spirit of Ahmedabad University, Praful Anubhai, had already joined the Unichem board at that time, and for some reason decided to become my supporter. I've still not figured out what he saw in me, but anyway, that was another point. And also, another colleague of mine, who was actually a general manager of one of our plants, and I was part of this whole, shall we say, palace intrigues and all the subterfuge which was taking place. I needed to bring somebody who would possibly allow me to kind of think rationally and find what way we needed to go. So this became a kind of, and of course our very, very close friend, our chartered accountant, was part of the family ever since the time we started doing all this. 3 of us or 4 of us got together and put our heads together and said, what do we really need to do? And do we have the courage to do it, and is it possible for us to do it? So we actually said that we have to grasp the bull by the horns. One of the first things was that the plants which we had in Bombay, you had highly overpaid labor. In those days, labor was not like today that you can hire and fire relatively. You had huge union issues. So we had to basically close Bombay. We had to make sure that we would be able to set up plants which could face international scrutiny. Because one of the things my colleague Mr. BK Sharma taught me, he says, sir, in clothes you can have seconds. In health there cannot be any seconds. So we cannot have a situation wherein you say the Indian public can be treated through a manufacturing plant which is not of the standard of what an American would be treated. And one thing we said, that we will rather go down than sacrifice certain these values. And that, to my mind, was some of those rallying points which really helped us to build back. And then we had to go to areas which were tax efficient. So we had to put up a facility in Goa, we had to put up another facility in Baddi. I literally joked to my shareholders and said, even if I have to go to the Arabian Sea, I will if I can save a rupee. Because today, we just need to make sure that we can really sort of be able to, marshal our resources in a way possible. I still remember my relations with Bank of India in those days. 26 crores we took by way of loan. The country didn't have the money to pay the VRS off to the workers. And what was great, my friends, and I really feel proud to tell you this, more than 3/4 of those workers came back and invested the money which we gave to them as a way of separation back as a deposit in the company, which I think was something which was very, very, highly appreciated. Thanks to the laws now, we have to return everybody's money, which we have done, but the fact of the matter was that was what it was. So we had to I had to dismantle this entire Kaka Mama culture. I had to bring in the professionals. The professionals came with their own bag of tricks. So everybody thought that what he had learned in his previous company was the right way to go. So it was quite a challenge to be able to do that. On the other side, I had an aging father who had thought I've completely gone mad because, these kind of investments were never seen. What we invested, my friends, from I think 1990 to 2000, friends, has been more than the investment put in by the company in the last 60 years. Okay? And the capital base which we built up today crosses 1,000 crores. And all this has been done in this short period when we realize what we need to do. So we focused on developing and articulating and executing our future strategy. Internationally, we did have to play a catch-up game because by that time, the Ranbaxis and the Reddys and the Sons had kind of moved in a stratosphere which was just making us to catch up. And at the same time, I still remember when my first plant was built in Baddi, and I went with my colleague Mr. BK Sharma to a company in the UK to say, sir, we have this facility which is now internationally approvable. Why don't you please help us by giving your product so we could manufacture and then you could market it. And I still remember this man, Harold Bells, telling me, Dr. Mody, you are the 100th person come from India asking me for my favor. Why should I give it to you? I said, Mr. Mills, a time will come when you will come to me for a job. But today is your day. I'm listening to what you are saying. And believe me, friends, within 5 years, he applied twice for a job in my place. So we had to make this mindset changes, friends. We had to go international. We had to build plants which were world class. We had to build up a research center. I'm really proud to say we've just shifted one to Goa. It's 200,000 square feet with I don't know, about 250, 300 scientists working. All of this, I think we were just able to do because we had courage and conviction in ourselves. We knew that there was an opportunity. It's not that the market had treated us badly, it's that we had not extracted what we could out of it. And, well, therefore, I think the learning for me has been, the longer the delay in facing reality, the greater the pain of adjustment. The obsession of relatives, okay? I think it's a very famous saying in Gujarati, Saga wala nati, wala saga nati. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's not that it's something which is negative, but if you have different agendas, it doesn't work. And there are times when there is no room for a mistake. It is make or break. I can relate so many instances where we just had to work with the edge of our seats. And we just didn't know whether this is going to take us anywhere or not. When we built our first plant, as I told you, we had to go running to try to get business. Today I'm not able to supply the amount of demand. After having now 7 manufacturing facilities, all internationally approved and reapproved, US, Japan, Brazil, any country you can think of, now being present in more than 40 countries and having more than 45 or 50% of the business coming from outside India. So clearly we got with this a confidence in our ability to build new plants. We could see that there is a breakthrough for market opportunities. And so, I think surely by this whole approach, what was actually a vicious cycle became a virtuous cycle. What investment we did in manufacture paid off. The tough decisions we took in terms of people, etc. also paid off. And therefore, we then focused into international markets. We went into R&D spend. There was a time, friends, when he talked about IDMA. He talked about this. My father, having been a leader in this industry, I'll honestly tell you, it was very difficult for me to face some of these associations. Because, I used to think that, what have I done? It was not what I had done, but what we had not done. And so I said, a time has to come when I should be able to regain at least my personal spot. And I remember when the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance came into being, this was an organization and is an organization of the top Indian promoter-led companies. So you have Sun, you have Zydus, you have Torrent, you have Lupin, all the big ones. I was not considered for membership because Unichem was not of a standard where we had international facilities, we were investing in R&D. And friends, today I'm very happy to tell you I'm the president of that association. So, and in addition to that, that has helped us to actually fashion the new drug policy. Government take us very seriously because this association with me and all others has 90% of India's exports, has all the majority investment in R&D done through this, and the government really feels that this is absolutely, a serious body which is able to deliver what it says. So the foray into the international markets, the higher spend on R&D, the manufacturing capacities which were built up, the field force size, at that time we just had maybe 800 or 1,000 people. And it's not just the numbers, but how do you really get quality work out of them? So again we went into this rampage wherein we said if we add 1,000 people more, we should be able to do the multiplying, as you guys do. This is what will come to per capita will be so much, will be the cost, blah, blah, blah. And again we fell flat on our face. Because at the end of the day, what I realize is that the connect with the customer, the ability for the person who goes on your behalf to be able to put his point of view across, the kind of training you give, the kind of incentives you give, the kind of motivation you give, plays a very, very important part. And today we are 4,500 people. Our attrition as of last 2 years ago was more than 30%. So we had virtually become, even as late as 2 years ago, a training ground. So it was great to join Unichem, get the learning, because as I said, we always had this medical education bias and all of that. And then of course, within 6 months you would be picked up by some better organization because here was ready-made material. I don't know whether it happens with BK Institute of Management in IIM, but the point I am saying is that's how it goes. Today, I'm very happy to tell you, my attrition rate in most cases is less than a single digit, which means I'm less than 5, 8, 10%. Some we actually want to increase because I think it's important to keep on reinventing and to have some fresh blood coming in. So really speaking, just to turn around and say that, yes, a guy's been there for so many years, we have to make sure that the Peter principle does not operate. So clearly, I think the lesson we learned in those times was struggle between short-term and long-term. The herd mentality, follow the peers. So many times I was told that you can indulge into market making because that's how your valuation will go up. I said, yes, the person who is making the market will make the money, but what happens to me? And once the credibility is lost, when the reputation is lost, there is nothing else to gain. So we decided that let our performance speak. The market will sooner take cognizance of it. If it doesn't matter. But we have to be true to what we want to do. So some of the observations I just felt is, while we have been consistent, and now by God's grace, one of the things which really happened, which sometimes I don't believe, from 1962 till 2012, we have not had 1 year of uninterrupted dividend, which means every year we have been able to reward our shareholders. Obviously, you can turn around and say, the base was small, you could manage it, whatever, but the fact is we did that. The other thing is, we had set our sights to be a cash flow free company, no borrowings. Today we are completely cash flow free. We don't borrow a rupee from the bank. So I think it's just not the question that that's good or bad. Yes, if we see that there is a worthwhile opportunity, we'll certainly do that. But I always believe that it's better to keep the resources well conserved with you before you just think that you want to go for a splurge. And I think one of the most important things I was taught by Mr. BK Sharma, and which I'd like to share with you all, is he said, listen, your father started the company, fair enough. You have been the second generation here. We don't know whether there will be a third or not. My daughter is an MBA from London Business School, claims to take interest. We'll see where she goes. But the fact of the matter is, you don't own 100% of the company. You have to be responsible to that 50% of people who have put faith in you. And you have to see that you don't belie their expectations. He says, the day you buy 100% of the company, it's your choice what you want to do. You can flush that money down the drain. But even if there is one outside shareholder who has to be properly rewarded and looked after. And therefore, I think we are in the land of Gandhi. This concept of trusteeship management was something which was ingrained into me from my first day. And where I was clearly told that you've got an opportunity. That doesn't mean that it is your birthright. Those days of divine right of management are over. If you are able to contribute into something and add value, then only please be into this. Otherwise, you can sell the company, you enjoy what you want to do, go and play your golf, do what you like. But as long as you are in business, you have no right to treat it as a hobby, no right to treat it as a fiefdom. You have to see to it that you are able to continuously add value to what you do. And friends, today if you ask me what am I looking ahead, I think we are now on a great growth path. The question is, how do we accelerate that growth? How do we bring in people who have that stirring in their loins, that they really want to see Unichem occupy that position which it had occupied but had lost because of its own omissions and commissions? How do we get significant revenues from the developed markets? And how do we see tomorrow? What is the kind of investment we should do so that India is able to produce a new R&D drug and where Unichem can play some part of it? I'm very happy to say that my teams are already working, and what would have been considered at one time an impossibility, today we are only not sure as to how much we want to invest and for how long. but the thoughts are already there. And therefore, I would like to just end with two thoughts. In this whole journey of 67 years, what's been the key takeaways? One, challenges are given. Don't run away. Face them. Two, failures are a part of the success journey. Enjoy that process. Nadi ka behlav hai, behte jao. But at the same time, make sure that you learn out of that. As I said, change is inevitable. Anticipate it as much as you can. Difficult situations require difficult decisions. But always do it practicing empathy and respect for the people. Even at the time of Mussolini, it was the first time when the trains ran on time in Italy, when a dictatorship was used. But please understand, unless you can get people to really get committed to your cause. And I think a good leader is one who basically makes sure that others do what he wants to do, not because he wants them to do it, but because they feel it's good to do it. And therefore, I was discussing with Professor Chirag Trivedi coming in the car. I said, yes, we have found a way through Facebook and on to black out whatever we want. And if we don't like somebody or somebody is not flattered us enough, we can press the delete button. But in life, there are no delete buttons. You've got to make sure that you have to deal and make sure that you make the lemonade with the lemons you are served. Every time you don't necessarily get that choice. Do not compromise business ethics, value systems. Sometimes I must say this, that even our movies teach us some things. If you look at that Shah Rukh Khan's dialogue in Dilwale Dulhania, his mother has taught him, I think some years ago I remember to have seen that there are two paths when you are confronted with a situation. One which appears to be very quick and fast, but at the same time is not accepted by your conscience, or you don't think that's right. And the other is tough, arduous, but finally you have to face only yourself and nobody else. And as long as you can do that, I think you are a winner. It doesn't really matter whether the world recognizes you as a winner or not. And so be courageous in taking risks, but try to see that you also put the, shall we say, fail-safe methods to the extent it is possible. Unichem lost out because of its ability of not doing good risk analysis. I think that is something which still plagues us as an organization, because we tend to become very happy when things go well. We tend to become very morose and depressed if things go bad. I think we have to develop that little poise and understanding. You would ask me as to basically what are some of the lessons I have learned in this whole process. I thought that I'd just share some of them with you. One, in India, the company is a manifestation of the promoter's personality. And he or she steers that ship. The key difference versus America is there the CEO is appointed for a fixed term. He or she does well, not well, the board decides to sack whatever. They want to bring all those changes here, but I don't see in my lifetime really those changes occurring. So here the CEO and the promoter get sort of intertwined into one role. And so you feel fine, it's your money. If you do well, it's fine. If you don't do well, it's not, nobody bothers. I think that is one big issue which we have to be completely cognizant of. In any relationship, if you don't add value, you have no reason to be part of that thing. Two, the leader needs to have a vision, needs to get people to buy into that vision, and needs to give a roadmap to implement the vision. What I have seen most often, we have in India very lofty ideas. By now we should have built 20 more freeways and everyone knows that how we can run the nation. But when it comes to implementation, I think it was the first Indian Ramcharan who really put effort into make people understand what goes into making that roadmap and seeing that that roadmap becomes successful. So it's better to have few things and follow them and see that you are successful rather than having 20 things put. One thing which I learned at my personal cost is delegation should not lead to abdication. Okay? No business can be a hobby. Try to understand what you are getting into. Empower, but with accountability. And these two balances, I think, are very, very critical. Do not look at ends, but figure out the right means. What I mean by right means, robust processes, robust controls, robust systems. Today in the world of electronics, crores can be taken out of a company without even knowing what's happening. The latest example is what happened yesterday at Tata Sky, where 2 employees decided to take out 7 crores from the vendor's account. One has gone and enjoyed with 30 bargals, the other fellow bought some 3 flats in Nashik. But in that process, the company is impoverished to that extent. Value systems need to be uniform across the organization. And this I cannot emphasize much more. And you have to make sure in this issue there are no choices. Either if you guys have gone to Disney World or Disneyland, you must be really wondering that what is in that they make that guy become a Mickey Mouse and dance up and down or whatever. But there is a whole process which goes into the selection of these people. What is their mindset? What is their psychology? What is their social context, etc., etc. We at Unichem have made sure or tried to make sure that every single person has to subscribe to that value. If not, the system finds a way to throw it out. But we have to be very clear that you will always have soothsayers, you will always have people saying, no, this is not the right way. But that's where I think we have to guard from temptation. And so clearly, friends, I don't know in this 30-minute monologue, which is not a dialogue, whether anything helped you. But I just thought that I should be open and frank and give you the story of Unichem. Today we should hopefully cross 1,000 crores this year. We hopefully have set for ourselves a target of 1,000 crores domestic in next 2 years. And I think that if there is a will and there is a team behind it, it's all possible. Thank you very, very much, and I'm free to take any questions you want. So I just thought that apart from, as an interested party, what I have said, if you would like to add some few words, I thought this is a great opportunity, so we might as well give it to him.
I don't want to take away any time from the interaction which he has promised. You've heard a wonderful story. It's a story which is not like a fairy tale. It's gone through various ups and downs. There are very testing moments. It has come through bright. I have been a witness to many of these episodes which he described, and many of the tribulations through which the company passed, the agony of taking certain decisions. He talked about the relatives, he talked about the tight situation, financial situation. He talked about the vicious circle of no money to build new plants, and without new plants you cannot pursue new products, you cannot pursue new markets, and how you get out of that vicious circle. So all that he has described to you, for lack of time as well as full context. Many times we do not realize as to what kind of stress it puts on the leader there. That's the test. That tests the mental of the leader. That's what I think he has demonstrated. One, and two, I think very important is the style of leadership. Despite the fact that he is the dominant shareholder, he is the promoter, he has built a team of professionals around him who do not mind speaking speaking what is good for a Unichem, who are not just henchmen. And that has helped him a great deal. Same with the board of directors which he has put together. And again, the discussions in the board, which I have seen, and I have seen on many other boards as well, the kind of discussions which he is able to foster because of his open personality, because of his ever-ready nature to learn from each one, that has made a world of difference. I think this kind of leadership is very important. Courage, and also to find out as to how, in a tight situation, who to go to, where to draw his strength from, the fortitude. These, I think, are other important lessons. Unichem has gone from a very, very poor situation, very bad situation, where could have closed down any moment, to come to this as one of the best performing companies financially. And now in the last few years also in terms of growth is not a divine proposition. It is something which was built with great commitment, fortitude and skill. That's what he has done. And I think as students, if you want to sort of learn more or ask some more questions.
Money out of jam in the pharmaceutical business, which is true to an extent but not totally true. So the government had to moderate what they considered to be the pricing policy. We were trying to basically get them out of this cost plus mindset, because everything is not cost plus, there is always a value added to it. And we finally got them to a market price. But what I see really is an issue is the consumer initiative now which is taking up. A lot of times you find that the type of people who are running these movements have their own agendas. So it's very important that while on one side the consumer initiatives have to be the watchdog and people have to see to it that there is a lot of I think awareness, etc. India today, if we are able to play our act right, particularly on the regulatory front, we can still become the world's generic powerhouse in pharmaceuticals. This is the only industry which is actually adding value. The other two, which they say is IT and diamonds, but I mean, you know that a lot of body shopping is in IT, and diamonds, of course, is purely using your labor arbitrage, which in any case is a different issue. This is a knowledge-based industry. And I think that if the government, the industry, the doctors, all of the stakeholders are able to see this in a much more larger perspective than just a short term, I think it will benefit all. And that's what we at IP are trying to do. We're trying to educate the bureaucracy and the regulators as to what kind of regulations are required, where is the need to control, where is the need to release, what are some of the issues which need to be looked into, and you can't paint everybody in the same brush. So I think including the pressures which we face from the largest companies in the world, where every step they want to basically block, because for one reason, India is a huge opportunity now for them. They have completely got into a kind of dormant stage as far as the world outside is concerned. They've not come to India because they like your and my face. They've come here because they see the growth opportunities and the fact that even today, more than 40% of our people are still denied allopathic medicine. So I think that it has to be a tightrope walking. On one side, make an agenda which is more, I would say, people-centric. At the same time, educate the regulators that they understand what needs to be done. And if some plants or some companies have to close down because they cannot look at what is required to be in the next stage, that's reality of life. Okay. You wanted, yeah, sorry.
Yes. So regarding what you said with reference to a leader and these three qualities, the third one being that he should have a roadmap which he should delegate to his followers. So that is one school of thought, whereas some school of thoughts, let's say King Martin Luther said that just take the first step in belief, no matter if you do not know how to go through that, but the first step should be taken with belief and determination. These are two different things, and what do you comment on?
Well, I think the first point is you must keep in mind Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi did not have an end point which they had to reach. So basically you did have the chance and the time of experimenting and the luxury and then learning in the process, as Anna Hazare has tried to do. But if you are engaged in certain finite resources which are given to you and you are supposed to add value into that, you better be clear in terms of what's your vision and whether ideally even in building that vision, if you can get your people to buy in, great. But finally, there is always one head to rule, and that is the CEO's head. Okay? So you have to make sure that whatever you do, Are you able to add value? Are your people able to add value? Are your practices in the way which would be required to see that you can take the next step? So just the envisioning is good, but it's like, you have two cogs in the wheel. There is a cognitive wheel and there is an experiential wheel. Okay? I am seeing companies which are well managed are the companies where the vision is clear. As you know, say McKinsey's ideas that you need only 3 points to implement something, not the fourth one, which means you've not drilled your thought to that extent. And then ruthless pursuance of that would get you to your goal. Yeah. I thought you were going to interview me, so I'd be spare a question here. Go ahead.
Sir, how are the challenges of managing international human resource as compared to domestic human resource different?
Yeah, well, I think basically human resource is a human resource. So to a certain extent, you can go into the philosophy and say we are all one. But we are all conditioned by our local sort of context and ethos. So what tends to happen is that when you look at the Indian scenario, you do have certain amount of shall we say, social dimensions and context. But particularly, you still have a feeling that you are part of this soil and you understand the people better. You would be also able to possibly get certain hints to know what you've done is something which is acceptable or not. But in those environments, I mean, most of the time language plays a huge barrier. Okay, so if I'm talking to somebody in Brazil, in my organization in Brazil, I'm unfortunately through an interpreter in my own organization. Okay, I don't know exactly how that person whom we are representing, the meeting, how that person is going to take what we are doing. Okay, so there is a much more of fine tuning and learning which you need to do. And therefore, we as a company decided that if we have to be internationally relevant, it's one thing to export, where you manufacture a product, use whatever is your advantage, but make sure that you are able to not be physically present in that market. When you are physically present, you have an establishment, you have people, you have all of that. Then this whole can of worms to deal is very, very different. And I think where we found, for example, even our HR people are finding it very difficult to come to terms with that. You need to have a much more global context to understand. And also, I think this tendency to be overawed by the white man. I now say we are privileged that in India we can have reverse colonization. Today you go to London, the Land Rover is Tata's, something else, Tetley tea is Tata's, whatever. So I said the time has come when we have to be very clear in terms of what we want out of them. So rather than if the tail wagging the dog, I'm not saying we should be rude, but I think we should be making certain messages very clear. For example, here, if I was doing a project, I wouldn't have to tell my people that if I'm staying back, you have to stay and see that we complete something. In England, Friday evening, he's either going to his ex-wife, mistress, whoever he is, but he's not going to be around for that week, however important that project may be. So the handling and this you require to do is very different. Yeah, ma'am.
As we know that in Gujarat, lots of pharmaceutical industries are coming in. Unichem being one of the very old and reputed industry, how do many small other industries might be trying to copy your product? So how do you deal with issues related to patents and copyright?
See, first of all, I think in terms of the patent and copyright, as far as trademarks is concerned, I must say that the litigation has come up to steam. So if I have a product which is registered and where I've got the proper IP, I can prevent somebody from doing that. What we've also done is in terms of consumer initiatives. For example, today if you are taking my product for blood pressure, there is a chance that you might get a spurious product or something which is a passing of action. That means it is actually not a Unichem product, but you think it's a Unichem product. So what we have done is at our expense, we put the SMSs now on such products. So you can call up that number and immediately it can come back to you, yes, we are happy to authenticate this batch for you. So, these are all initiatives you need to take. For example, one of our products which was used has got a lot of tendency that people like to substitute it because it's cheaper. So we put holograms to make sure that it's not easy to make that kind of packing material. We've also got certain internal barcodings which only the quality assurance know. So, it's like this. You can, there's more black label made in this world than what Scotland made. But they still know to decipher and they can do that. As far as not coming to Gujarat, let me answer that also. As a matter of fact, I would love to have something in Gujarat, but I was with the back to the wall. Anywhere I could get a tax cut is where I was going. So that's why at that point of time, Goa gave me that excise benefit, gave me the income tax benefit, so did Baddi. And of all places, I am in Sikkim now. And incidentally, all the Gujarati friends are in Sikkim. My next door neighbor is Pankaj Patel. So it doesn't really matter. I think what we have to learn is that, we have to look at opportunities on an overall scale. Somebody who's managing a Nestle in Switzerland is not bothered that how do I operate in Argentina, why don't I put a plant in Brazil. Where there is economic value, where you think you are able to get that, and for God's sake, don't get into this game that I have to be present there. That have to be part has made a lot of Indian promoters impoverished, because when a company is for sale, everyone is bidding as if, it's their wife they want to literally marry. And in the process, just the price goes up. And then you lose. A multinational comes in, he or she, they're very clear that this is the price I want to pay. Fine, and this is my BATNA, this is my better than alternative negotiated price, or this is my walkaway price. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you said that you have patent protections for your products, and that's how you try to protect from
trademark.
Trademark. What I also want to ask you is that you said that you are putting up a research center with 250 people. Now, in the light of compulsory drug licensing that the government has done, the Nexavar case, the very famous, where Roche is losing up, Bayer is losing up, and at Pharma for 2.8 lakh per month drug, 800 rupees is what Natco is going to sell it for, and Bayer is going to get what 528 rupees out of that as royalty. Now, under such a circumstances, how do you protect the investments that you make in R&D?
No, see, first of all, compulsory licensing. First of all, I have been very much involved with Natco, where this whole thing has been done. They are also a member of the IPA. See, you have to understand, 1970 was the watershed as far as the change of the Patent Act was concerned. 2005, we have joined the world, and so we have to respect that. Any drafting which is done, you have to challenge by doing jurisprudence to see whether the drafting is teeth in it or not. Okay? So, one thing is, of course, in terms of a lot of compulsory licensing is being forced to make multinationals realize that this is not a free game that anyone can get away with. But at the same time, it is also making the legal system be challenged to know whether there is enough teeth in the law. Okay? So therefore, a lot of these decisions are taken to understand where we are going, and compulsory licensing is something which, in case of Surafenib, the product you talked of Nexavar, I mean, Natco know they're not going to make big money out of it because the number of cases is going to be so small. Okay, but it is understanding. Like in England, there is nothing like a written constitution. It's come out of precedents and it's come out of jurisprudence. Okay.
But then Bayer would still lose in the game.
No. See, first of all, Bayer would lose in the game. Bayer is coming here after having made its millions everywhere. So the point is very clear on that. And second part is that Bayer also is looking at what the overall situation is. Because today, what they try to do in order to ward off the bad press, they are giving free products to so many countries. And that's how they go and tell the government that, here we will not charge money, we'll give it free to patients, etc. But some of these are I mean, like the skirmishes we have between India and Pakistan. Do you think both can afford a nuclear war? Both can't. Yeah.
So it was a very gripping address. A lot of insights. I just enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So you have a large team at multiple locations, team members relocating within locations. So what are those 2-3 things or 2-3 attributes or qualities that we must attempt to instill in our students apart from academic excellence? When all those who are sitting here, academic excellence is almost given. But what are those 2-3 things that we should try to seriously instill in them through various interventions and events? And
I'll just give you one latest example so that this perspective, I don't know whether what you're asking I'm addressing through this answer. But by all sense and purposes, Goa is a much better site than to have a research center at Mumbai, right? It would take 1.5 hours to go and come. Okay. We built a center which is something which I don't think, I mean it's nice, let's put it very simply. Okay. People have a feeling, a lot of Hindus at that Goa is a Western country, people don't wear saris. There is only the frock culture. Okay, people are only going bar hopping. How will our ladies adjust? So we had to go through a whole process of telling them that there was Lutheranization of Goa which took place during the Portuguese time. But today Goa is 95% Hindu. The people are more conservative than you can imagine. So we got a professor from Goa University to lecture about how strong are the roots there. They said that except fish nothing is available. Then we told them the amount of opportunity and markets which are there. Okay, and we got them going with their families to see for themselves. Made our HR see that they've got schools and colleges where they can get admission. Gave them money so that they could buy the flats at a much cheaper rate, and even gave them interest-free loans on that. And still some people have not come. But the point is, if you just turn around and say, fine, you take it or leave it, this is my way or the highway, that's not going to work. At the same time, I just gave you this example of how we had to do this internal transformation. So while we on one side want to prepare our people, on the other side, we also have to see to it that we create an environment which makes them at least mentally happy that they're going to a much better place. Now I'll share a joke with you. The problem which we now have is something different. Earlier what used to happen was it takes 1.5 hours to reach in Bombay from the place they stay to the Jogeshwari. 1.5 hours to come back. So nearly 3 hours goes in that commute, right? So by the time he goes home, he's looking at one of those TV shows, eats his dinner, goes to sleep. Now his wife says, why is he coming back so early? Because it's taking only 10 minutes now to reach. So we have to again now make sure that the wife is profitably engaged doing something, because she was so happy in seeing that this guy is out of the house by 6. Okay, so I said fine, we'll find ways by which we'll get the ladies involved into something where the men don't break their hair. So I mean, these are things, you know, which you need to just look into and see what needs to be done. This was one thing. Similarly, I think the overall thing is what you have to do is try to sell it, not that it's going to benefit you. How much it's going to benefit the overall cause. Today, why are we moving the research center? It's not to make only the money. It is that there are ecological causes. Today, the entire Jogeshwari has become a neighborhood of residences. If any gas or something is leaking, it's going to create a problem for the people around. It's going to create a problem also for those employees. We're giving them much better facilities in a much larger, much more cleaner, ecological friendlier environment. But what appears to be very easy, which I can logically argue with you, see, when emotions and logic get involved, it's a very difficult game. That's why it's very easy to control something in the office. Try to control the wife, you know what happens. Okay, sir. Am I done with my time? Yes, sir.
One of your R&D departments in Mumbai is dedicated to novel drug delivery system, NDDS. What exactly is NDDS?
NDDS, as you rightly said, is novel drug delivery system. So what tends to happen is that today we look at conventional methods of the drug delivery like oral delivery. Okay? When you look at, for example, making sure that a product is put like a skin patch, which you can put so that the absorption takes place without the side effects which can be orally done. Or you've got a mouth dissolving product wherein you get much quicker relief as compared to the conventional ones. It's finding a drug delivery platform where either you are optimizing on the dosage, on the convenience, on the side effects, and also maybe the cost. But it does not typically classify itself as a me-too drug, because you need to put much more of effort to make sure that in trying to deliver it this way, you're not losing out on, you're not having any side effect which otherwise is all well documented and known in the normal conventional form.